This is a production of WKNO Memphis. Production funding for this program is made possible in part by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Allison Chick is the first Memphis teacher to be named Tennessee Teacher of the Year in 30 years. A second and third grade teacher at Richland Elementary School, Allison has been a teacher since 2001. She joins us today to talk about the award, her approach to teaching, and her role in the lives of students. Thanks for being here.
You're welcome.
And congratulations, I should say.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Let me start with a basic question, a simple question. What does it take to be a great teacher?
I think the number one thing is having heart and passion for what you do, drive and determination, most importantly. So I think we're not all cut out to be teachers, but I think if you have the heart and passion for what you do, then you have what it takes.
And you talked before about being, I was going to introduce you as a third grade teacher. You said you actually are a second and third grade teacher, and that you're very proud of that. Tell people what that means, because I think it's a small thing, but it's a really big thing about the ways in which schools, I mean, I won't admit my age right now, but I went to public schools, and I think teaching, the profession, the approaches have changed a lot, and the fact that you're a second, third grade teacher is a really big change for teachers and for students.
Well, I'm a second, third grade looping teacher, and this is actually my second year in the loop, and I'm very excited about it. I sort of have a bucket list of challenges that I have for myself in teaching, and looping with my class was one of them. Another one is having a class of all boys. I don't know if my principal is willing to do that, but I've just always wanted to do that and sort of experiment with my practices in that way. For my students, it's a good chance for me to help them advance quickly, in that when I start the second year of the loop, I already have the knowledge of my students' needs and abilities academically. They're already aware of our rules and procedures, so you can hit the ground running. So you have a great chance of making a stronger impact. So you already have that community bond. You're not spending a whole lot of lag time teaching rules and procedures and getting to know you. And we spent a couple of days reviewing what we did over the summer, and then we hit the ground running. So this is something I'm very excited about.
It's something that they do in Montessori schools. Yeah, not that you're an expert on Montessori, but I think, isn't that right, that Montessori schools, they move the kids in groups and some of those things. Do you see, you've been a teacher for what, 12 years now, do you see more and more kind of, again, small but really important innovations coming into school? I mean, is it not the same old thing that I experienced, maybe you experienced when you were in class?
I was thinking about that question when I was preparing for the interview process. I was thinking about changes that happened in the school system within the past 5 years, and more recently changes have happened quicker, but for the most part a lot of what I had done in school was very similar to what I'm doing today, and it's really recently that we're adapting our practices and taking a look to see how we can do things differently, which is exciting. We're on the cusp of a lot of great changes, and making this type of change is just one of many that I think we're doing for the better.
Yeah, and you talk about Memphis City Schools, first teacher from the Memphis City Schools in 30 years to win this award. And Memphis City Schools, I mean, we could talk for hours about all the changes that are going on, but some of those changes are a tremendous experimentation. Everything from the money that the Gates money has brought in, Kreiner Cash, the current superintendent, brought in and changed a whole lot of approaches. There are changes at the state level with everything from teacher tenure to contract. And I don't expect you to talk about all those things, but do you, as a teacher in the classroom, feel all that change that we talk about in newspapers and on TV, do you feel that difference in your classroom?
Absolutely. I can sense those changes all over my classroom, within the buildings, within the school district. You say that I'm not an expert at those things, and maybe I'm not, but I'm very interested in all of those things, and I read a lot and I study a lot to see how things are happening here and how things are happening in other parts of the country. There's a huge shift right now in taking a strong look at what we're doing in our classroom and how we can best meet the needs of our students. One of the strongest shifts, I think, is employing Common Core practices and using Common Core standards, unified set of standards throughout the nation. Teaching teachers how to implement those standards is a big challenge. The evaluation process is huge. huge issue right now, and we don't have all the kinks worked out. And not having all the kinks worked out is kind of a difficult thing to accept for teachers in general, because it's kind of like giving a test and not proofreading it completely.
Right.
And not to say that they haven't proofed and edited the process, it's just that we don't know if it's the most effective thing. And so we have to go back to the drawing board a lot to make sure that we can edit and make changes. But to attach a score to my name with something that is not perfect is difficult when you have teachers that we want all of our students to perform at high levels, and we want to perform ourselves at high levels.
And are you, I said you weren't an expert. What I really meant to say is, you're certainly much more an expert than I am on these issues. But that level of experimentation and the uncertainties, you sound like you're comfortable with that. And, a lot of people aren't, and I'm not picking on teachers, a lot of people in business, you look at all kinds of things where they're not comfortable with that sort of change, uncertainty, experimentation, but you are.
Well, and I may be unique in that I'm a studier, and it's kind of like baseball. If you pitch, I'm going to swing. And so when the rubric came out initially, I made sure that I was part of the process. So in developing that rubric.
Yeah.
So I joined 3 different working groups so that I could be aware. I like firsthand information.
Right.
So
tell us, let me interrupt you a little bit. The rubric is the evaluation standards that are being put in. That was a state law that was passed, and now the whole difference and changes in how teachers are evaluated.
Right. Well, it used to be that teachers were evaluated once every 5 years. And I don't want to make any mistakes here in saying that when I talk about the rubric, I'm talking about what administrators use during the observation. And the observation is one component of the evaluation process. Other parts of the evaluation process include stakeholder perceptions, value-added data. So it's not solely based on the observation, but the observation is a large part of it. And so in designing the rubric, we had to take a lot of factors into account. And so a lot of modifications have had to be made each year. We're on the 2nd year, and next year will be the 3rd year. And so last year was TIM 1.0, which is the teacher evaluation measure. And this year we're on TIM 2.0, and next year we'll have TIM 3.0. And facing the merger, we need to redesign a rubric and evaluation system that meets the needs of both Memphis City and Shelby County schools, which I'm a part of that design team as well.
You mentioned the merger. It kind of hangs over everything, at least on a big level with the schools. What is your sense of that right now? I mean, what you talk about being on a group looking at standards for the unified school. What else do you hear or feel or know with this big transition happening and all the uncertainties about that transition going on?
Well, certainly it's not wrong to be apprehensive. I think we all are. We're all concerned. We want to do what's right and what's best for our students. We want to make sure that within this process and this change, that students are first. I think that we don't know all of the answers, and that's difficult. Change is not easy, and it doesn't always happen quickly, and we don't know all the answers, and because of that, I think a lot of us are incredibly apprehensive.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of assumptions and misinformation, but I believe being informed is what's going to help everyone go through this.
Yeah. Well, lots of talk about the city schools over many years now, and more of a spotlight on certain things, and to be completely stereotypical, unfair. I mean, critics say, well, the city schools are this failing school district, the Shelby County schools are this, the old county schools were these great. And I'm not saying that everyone says that, but that's what the harshest kind of critics have tended to say. You belie that. I mean, I think a lot of things do, but the fact that you're from a city school, you've been in the city schools, I think the whole time you've been teaching, what is the biggest surprise that someone who isn't familiar with the city schools but watches a lot of news about it, reads about it, pays a lot of taxes about it, what are the biggest or some of the biggest surprises that people would find if they went into a city school?
We have amazing teachers, incredibly strong, knowledgeable teachers that are highly effective. And I think that, and with all due respect as a representative of the media, I have to say that it doesn't help to hear negative stories about a very small percentage that doesn't showcase our best. And I think the media could do a whole lot better of a job showcasing the quality teachers that we have in both Memphis City and Shelby County, because we do have amazing teachers. And I think that would probably be the biggest surprise, that there are teachers just like me out there that put in countless hours, spend lots of their own money on supplies and materials for their kids, are nurturing and warm and create an inviting classroom where students can succeed.
Yeah, and you have, I think as I've read about this award and some of the articles about it, you I think have talked about great support from people around you. You know, that one of the negative things, and you're absolutely right, it doesn't hurt my feelings at all to criticize the media about, in general, the way the media can cover things like this, that you're not really in isolation. You have great support around you.
I do.
And I think that's something that maybe people don't understand. But talk about that. I mean, the importance of, let's say, your principal. I mean, I guess that's one of the more important things that can happen is a strong principal, strong teachers under. Is that true?
Absolutely. My administrator, Sharon McNary, she shows me every day what a strong leader is supposed to be. Before I went into education, I guess I had some preconceived notions as to what an administrator was supposed to be like, and seeing her and the type of work that she does and the leadership that she has, it opens my eyes to what that leadership is supposed to look like.
Yeah. And
she is amazing. The type of support, the knowledge of her teachers' abilities, the way that she can bridge the gap between professionalism, the relationship that she needs to have with her teachers as a leader, and even friendship outside of work is amazing.
Yeah.
I truly feel that where I work is more like my extended family.
Yeah, and I think you talked about in one of the interviews I read or saw about you know, going to kids' birthday parties and talk about that whole family thing and really considering the kids a part of your family. And you know, I guess that's important to you, or did that just seem natural to you? I mean, is that more of a purposeful decision, or just something that just of course you would go to a birthday party, of course you'd be part of your students' lives in that way?
I guess I never dreamed when I envisioned my career that this is the type of relationship that I would have with all of my students in my class. But even before I came to Richland, I was very connected to my students. And I just think that that's just part of who I am. I feel that my students need to know that I care about them, and that's one of the ways that I show that. If I'm invited to a birthday party, I'm going to do everything I can to go. Sporting events, family gatherings, I'm part of their family. By the end of the year, you would think that I was one of the family members in a lot of my students' families, because that's the type of support my students need.
Yeah, and I've heard people who work at charter schools in Memphis and other schools, but just a forum I was at, that some folks talking about charter schools and really the toughest, most impoverished parts of the city, Cook County too. But these people were saying that one of the great things that they do, that they are open. KIPP Academy is an example, where they're open almost 12 hours a day. They're providing, in some cases, 2 and 3 meals a day. Some of them,
Right.
you know, are moving towards Saturday schools or part-time Saturday, and that the kids love it because it's this sense of stability and so on. I mean, does that, Richland, I don't think does that, but in your general sense of looking at the city schools, the area schools, is that a direction that schools should go into to supplement some of those family activities, that family support, where kids don't have that at home? Is that an appropriate role for the schools?
I mean, I think that's definitely something to look into. I personally have always kept students after school if they needed it. A lot of families can't afford aftercare programs, and it's just, I don't say anything. I don't expect any kind of pat on the back. I don't expect parents to give me anything for it. It's kind of just having the mentality that this is what needs to be done and this is what my students need. And I've just always been this way. And whether it makes me a better teacher than another teacher, well, I don't believe that. It's just what I feel in my heart that needs to be done. Now, do I think that every school district or every school needs to have a program like that? I'm not so sure, but I think that it would be fantastic if we had a type of program that would help educate parents as well.
You talk about different schools, different places, and it's part of the debate about, you know, the municipal schools saying, you know, they simply want more local control and the flexibility to adapt to their students, their communities, their needs, more so than a bigger, massive bureaucracy. You can comment on that whole debate if you want, but I don't want to put you on the spot. But at the same time, you as a teacher within one elementary school within a very big system, do you feel like you have the freedom to adapt to your specific kids? You know, again, going back to the negative kind of really unfair stereotypes of urban schools, that there's this kind of one-size-fits-all approach. but you seem to be describing to some extent that, no, you have a lot of flexibility to adapt to your specific kids. Is that fair? Am I on something there? Or?
Not, when you talk about flexibility, I wouldn't say that I have 100% autonomy.
Sure,
I don't.
sure.
I mean, that would be amazing. And I think the challenge is that with teachers, you have different levels of ability, you have different years of experience, and with the varying years of experience, at times, as a school district, there's a lot of prescribed programs to help support needs of teachers and to help strengthen their classroom instruction. We don't always differentiate the needs of our teachers. The expectation is that we'll differentiate for our students as teachers, that we'll do that, but we don't always differentiate the needs of our teachers in terms of professional development. And so that being said, that's something that we probably need to look at, and our time is valuable, so I don't think teachers need to go to professional development opportunities that they could probably teach.
Yeah.
So, but it's difficult when you have 6,500 teachers maybe to analyze each individual teacher's strengths and weaknesses, but I think the evaluation model is helping us to do that, and it just takes a little bit of time in order to do that.
Yeah. Can you talk about different levels of teachers and so on? I mean, go back over your 10 years. I mean, do you look back at those first years and think, I was good, but I'm so much better? Or do you look back on those first years and think, gosh, I was really learning on the fly? I mean, look back on your career now of 10 plus years, how much have you learned over that period of time?
Oh, there's no doubt that I've learned a lot. But I will say this, when I was in college at the University of Memphis and I went through my student teaching program, I was chomping at the bit to get out and have my own classroom. I was a diehard teacher even then. Growing up, I was that way. I couldn't wait to have my own classroom. I read a lot constantly and had a lot of good models to go by. By models, I mean different teachers that I've had in the past. I had a good student teaching experience and I was able to learn a lot from that. And when I came out, I think there were some things that I was insecure about in terms of my practices, but if you're not a reflective teacher, you need to be. So you constantly analyze and look at what you've done each day and for each lesson and think, well, if I was going to redo this lesson, what would I do differently? And I think it's that type of reflection that's helped me grow as an educator, and working with colleagues that are very strong and help me look at the strength of best practices, and I guess sort of a mentoring type relationship. I never had an official mentor, but looking to my colleagues, I think, is what supported me the most.
And at any point, you talked about wanting to be a teacher back many, many years. Was there a point in maybe that first year or even last week where some of that idealism, some of that just hope, desire to be a teacher ran up against some harsh realities of frustration or a bad day? Or, I mean, or has it really been fulfilling in the way you expected it to be?
It has. I've never once doubted my decision to be an educator. I've thought about other careers that I would be good at, but I love what I do. My students make me feel like a rock star every day that I walk into my classroom. When I was going through this process, we talked about, well, what if you don't get it, or what might happen? And the truth is, the reward is going into my classroom every day. When I wake up in the morning, I'm excited to come to school. Sometimes I stay up very, very late, and part of why I stay up very late is because I'm looking at different strategies that I can employ in my classroom, and I'm excited and anticipating how my students are going to react to the new ideas that I'm going to present the next day. I'm just excited to do my job every day, and I have a lot of passion and drive for what I do. And I think that my kids know that, and that radiates with them. I mean, you can ask even my most reluctant learner, and they can tell you that I'm excited and I have passion for what I do.
Yeah. Talk about the side of teaching, and I don't know how much of this you do and at this grade level, of dealing with parents. I mean, people talk about, schooling starts at home, and the involvement of parents. How do you involve the parents, or do you involve the parents in, the process of educating the kids?
I'm truly blessed because I work at a school where parent involvement is a priority. We're not a Title I school, and what we do not have from Title I funds, we do have with people. And by that I mean we always have resources and human capital. So for us, I think having parents every day is our greatest resource. For me personally, I have a website that I put together that is very interactive. It has tons of websites that students can access at home. I put together slideshows of events that happen at school and activities that happen in my classroom, so that even parents that can't always come to school can access what their students are doing and can share those things with family members, coworkers, friends. Parents are the foundation of our school, and I look at the relationship as a triangle. It's three-sided, and I have my students, my parents, and all three are essential in the success of my students.
And does it ever get to a point of, people talk about helicopter parents? I mean, have you seen a shift, maybe that parents are that much more involved, maybe crossing the line of two, questioning what you do in the classroom, or no, they're just supportive of what you do? You know what I'm saying? The helicopter parent phenomenon, people maybe talk about it in an older age, where parents are just all over the teacher and questioning every decision and asking about everything. Do you see that? From time to time?
From time to time, maybe, but I don't believe that my parents are excessive, and I think they have a right to question, and I make the time for them. And you have different levels of concern and interest, and it's not the same as it was when we were kids. And when we go into the classroom to talk about our students, or as parents, when we go in to talk about our children, I think that we look back at our own childhood and our own experiences in school, and that's our foundation for making any kind of connections of what our kids are going through. And it's not the same classroom. But I think my parents are always willing to listen. I have great relationships with them, and I'm always willing to take the time to discuss whatever questions they may ask. Starting the year with the mindset that you're willing to work with them and you are a partner in their child's education, pretty much sets the tone for the year and how you're going to interact with parents.
Yeah. And so what's next in terms of this award? You are entered into the competition, or you have entered the competition for National Teacher of the Year. How does that process work?
Do you want to know about the initial process, or
Sure.
where I go from here?
Yeah, where you go from here.
Okay, so last Tuesday, as you know, I was honored as Tennessee Teacher of the Year, which is incredibly exciting. And the next day I was informed that I had to complete the application for National Teacher of the Year. And that was due in Nashville yesterday. And then in Nashville, they will put together the necessary materials in addition to my application, and it will be sent to Washington, D.C. by tomorrow. Okay. And then I will wait until February to find out if I might be one of the 4 finalists. And then in April, it'll be announced nationally on the lawn of the White House.
Wow. And then
I'll get to meet the president.
Yeah. And then you mentioned the process to get to this. There was an application process, is that right, to become Tennessee Teacher of the Year? Just quickly what the...
It was pretty extensive. So you have to be selected from your school, and then win from your city, and then your region, then be the Grand Division winner in your grade band, and then be selected as the Grand Division overall winner, which of course that would be West Tennessee. And so that makes me the West Tennessee Teacher of the Year, as well as the Tennessee Teacher of the Year.
Okay. And just a quick background, you mentioned before the show we talked a little bit, you were at Richland now 5 years, is that correct?
This is my 5th year.
Yeah, and where before that?
I was at Fox Meadows Elementary for 7 years, and I completed 1 semester. Right after I got through student teaching at Spring Hill Elementary, they hired me to complete a semester for a teacher that was on maternity leave. And then I was surplused and went to Fox Meadows, which at the time was one of the 10 new schools that year.
Okay. And you mentioned U of M. Did your teaching certificate and teaching training there?
I'm a product of the public school system here. I went to Shelby County Schools. I graduated from Bartlett High School. I went to the University of Memphis, and I did my student teaching here as well.
Okay. And do you we talked a little bit before, but do you look forward and say, boy, someday I'd like to be in a principal's office, I'd like to be in a superintendent's, or do you foresee yourself staying in the classroom, or you haven't thought that far ahead?
I've entertained thoughts of what my ideal job would be, and it's always in education in some capacity. And I think ultimately I would like to work with teachers. And I've sort of painted a picture of what that job would look like, because I want it to be a non-intimidating position where I get to work with teachers to help them cultivate their practices. But I'm hoping that when the time comes and the opportunity presents itself, I'll know, because I'm not sure right this minute, if you ask me right this minute, if I'm ready to leave my students. I love what I do and I love my kids, so it would be really tough, but I'm hoping that I'll know.
Yeah, right. And would that, you foresee yourself, I mean, a thing like Teach for America or those kind of programs, or something within the school system, or maybe some of both? I mean,
I'm open to anything that involves students and teachers. So there's lots of programs out there. I just, at this point, I don't know. It just depends on what opportunity presents itself.
okay. Well, and as we wrap things up here, make sure we touch on the any other education reform that you see. And there's been so much over the last couple of years in the Memphis City Schools. Are there things that you look forward to over the next, skipping the merger, as more changes take place? I mean, what do you look forward to changing and adapting to over the next few years?
I think the biggest change right now is two, really. The adaptation of Common Core standards in the classroom, and I guess our measure for teacher effectiveness. Personally, in terms of my growth, technology is my passion. I want to learn anything I can to advance my students with technology. That's what they're interested in. So whether it's using smart boards or iPads or laptops or iPods, I want to know how I can use it and put that in my classroom and reach my students that way.
All right. Well, thank you. Congratulations again. Good luck in the national competition. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Join us again. Good night.